list of features and work that we want to finish before 4.1.10. That means we need to finish by end of February. Okay. I'll go through them. The most important requirement from everybody using Kubernetes right now on Azure or any other cloud is support for KMS. The idea is to encrypt etcd objects, like Kubernetes objects saved in etcd using an external key. There was a bit of contention on this feature. The original implementation removed and now replaced with the gRPC external service running, where you can just talk to it to get the key and encrypt and so forth. It has a very crisp and clear interface, and we're ready to implement. I have Rita. She's not on the call, but Rita promised to take over this one. All right. Then we have the Azure Gateway, Azure App Gateway. So let's see. This is the Azure Application Gateway as an ingress controller. Right. That work is currently stalled, and we're looking for somebody for this feature. The idea is to use ingress mechanism, Kubernetes ingress mechanism, and link it to Azure Application Gateway. Application Gateway has some set of features that people really like around throttling and handling of incoming data to your cluster, and people are interested to use that. Okay. The third one is the V1 of out of tree provider. And by V1, I mean it will look exactly like what you have in N3 provider. As a matter of fact, what we have right now is a private repo on Azure user, all right, that has exactly the same code that's in N3, but wrapped in an XUtopy. The team handling this is, again, the team in China, and they are asleep now, but what they have is a very simple job that keeps things in sync, all right, and allow this cloud provider to be always on bar with the N3 provider. Over the next couple of weeks, this repo will go public, all right, and then we need to make the decision of when should we switch off the old provider into the new provider. This decision is a bit complex to make because it has implication on how can we update existing clusters and so forth, and we're looking into that. I might be bringing some input to this and looking for input over the next call, SIG call. The rest is pretty easy to go through. A fuse driver for the new Azure storage fuse driver for blob storage. I don't know if you guys looked at it, but there is a fuse driver right now for blobs, and I don't mean beige blobs. I mean blobs, like the traditional block blobs. Encryption for the volumes. People are interested, especially highly regulated environments. They are interested in like encrypting the disk itself. The entire data of the disk is encrypted. This will be easier once we have the KMS integration, because it also depends on the key vault. So the way Azure works is the keys are saved in key vault. So once we have the KMS integration, there will be a key vault provisioned in the user resource group, and that can be used for the encryption as well. OMS integration, people are asking, like, there is requirements for it, but nobody came up so far with, here is the use case we want, and accordingly this is being stalling, and I'm probably going to take it out of V1.10 release, because if somebody came with requirements, the most important thing is to come with a use case that describes how can we say that this requirement is delivered. Because right now we have people saying OMS integration, but okay, what does this mean?
Okay. Sorry for my ignorance. What is OMS? Is that an Azure specific?
It's a monitoring and analytics platform on top of Azure that provides like alerting, graphing, and dashboarding, and all of that stuff. So, and it's tightly integrated with Azure own feature set. So it makes sense if somebody using Azure and Kubernetes on Azure, then he can look at everything in one platform. All right. Then the Autoscaler feature right now, it's in a question mark. There is progress, but again, the people who are working on it are not exactly people I know, so I don't have a lot of input there. All I know, it's progressing. I should have some input this week on this. All right. The idea is autoscaler for within the cluster itself. It's not external autoscaler. It lives on your cluster, and then people can scale up the cluster and down automatically. All right. It's based on one of the incubation projects on Kubernetes. And then you have this is probably, again, very important thing. There is a big move on dropping using service principal for container, for Kubernetes. All right. Right now, you can, when you provision a cluster or the cloud provider allow you to use either the service principals as an Active Directory service, Azure Active Directory service principals, where you need to save the service principal on disk of each node and the master, or you can use what we call managed service identity, where identities are given to the node itself. There is an endpoint on the node, a REST endpoint, where you can connect, get a token, and go with this token into all the resources that your cluster may need to talk to. This includes, but not limited to, Active Directory, ARM, SQL Server, storage is going to support this as well. So there is a lot of work in this area. Now, the V1 implementation, I think, called dead, supported the MSI. MSI was every node gets its own identity, right? Now, as you can tell, this is kind of idiotic because you will end up with 150 nodes, 250 nodes, each one with his own identity. And then the team realized this and quickly have the explicit MSI. Explicit MSI is decoupling the identity from the node. So I can give a bunch of nodes one identity. I can give a bunch of things one identity. That means my cluster can be represented with one identity. That means I can do stuff like I can grant this single identity to key vault keys. I can give it to storage. I can give it to Active Directory. That means better security and better management and less operational overhead on the cluster itself. This is a big deal, and it's one of those things that everybody's talking about and everybody's keeping track of. There is a Windows V110 feature, which is the CRI, Windows CRI configuration. Windows is trying to move away from like explicit Docker integration and so on, and talks directly to CRI. Again, I don't have a lot of input on this because I'm not keeping track of Windows, but I know that people are working on this. There's a guy actually on my team in Microsoft who's working actively on this, right? The last thing is a scheduler modification to do. So right now, users can run into problems if they are trying to mount premium disks on non-premium machines or manage disks on non-managed machines. And this is causing problems because users will never see the problem until they run a pod with a PVC that actually cannot fit a VM. All right. Side by side, there is another PR. Google is working on it, which is like dynamically deciding on the number of persisted disks per or persisted volumes per node. And this will be configuration driven. So side by side, when we deliver both of them, we shall no longer get problems like, but your VM is non-premium and you're trying to use premium storage. So this is all happening over there. And then there are 3 bugs we're tracking for V110. There will be more bugs to track. The first one is the Azure file resize feature. Like I have an Azure file BV and I want to resize it. Mount options for Azure DD, like mount read only, or like the bind mounts options that we have right now. We have basic support, but the idea is to support more there. Okay. Andy from China team is actively working on this one. And then there is the flex volume support on Windows that allows to support funky behaviors that's Windows specific, mainly think of Azure storage, Windows storage spaces, which is similar to Linux volume managers. You can stitch a disk out of disks. So flex volume support will allow us to write PowerShell scripts to allow people to actually do these things. All right. There was a request last time we talked around release notes for the behavior changes with that for NSG, network load balancers, and so forth. It's there on 1.9 release notes right now. And please go ahead and read it. It has a lot of features for people to use. and we tried so hard not to change the behavior, but extend it. Meaning, if users don't change the config, everything will remain as if they turned on a config, then they can use the new features that allow them to just not get that surprise of, oh, I expected this to happen, but right. The last thing I want to talk about is the announcements. For anybody who's not there over the past few talks, we are going to fork Kubernetes on Azure, meaning people on Azure will run Azure-specific binaries, not the mainstream binaries. However, these binaries are almost 100% of upstream. Our job is going to be, again, pushing upstream as fast as we can, but this allows for emergency fixes, let's say out-of-band patches for Azure-specific stuff that cannot go as fast on the upstream or main line. We will apply them on our fork and then quickly push for upstream. Anything that doesn't make it upstream will be reverted back. So what you will get when you run this fork is everything upstream plus plus. Makes sense?
What are some examples of patches you're carrying, and do you expect those to diminish over time as the cloud provider gets externalized?
Absolutely. So there was, during 1.9, we were lucky, but we were really at the edge of our seats. The changes we did for the network load balancer, the NSG, was seriously affecting customers using Kubernetes on Azure, specifically large clusters, as in the cluster doesn't work because issues in the cloud provider. Mm-hmm. Yes, we were very lucky building them and pushing them in 20 days. But if this didn't happen in 20 days, we will end up with a situation where customers running Kubernetes on Azure and unable to do their business because a batch that needs to be applied.
So you were actually migrating them you were upgrading them to this patched image, or I guess they upgraded to 1.9 because you got it in the release. Yes. Okay. So just being really nosy here, I pulled up the Azure Kubernetes repo and looked at like ACS 191, and it's not a few commits ahead; it's 77 commits ahead, which is a little surprising. Like, are you carrying that many patches on 1.9?
What repo are you looking
like
at?
I went to Azure Kubernetes and then went to the ACS-V191-1 branch.
All right, hold on. GitHub/Azure/Kubernetes.
Yeah, and then just I sent the link in Zoom too if it's easier, but just go to branch and then change it to ACS. The latest ACS 191. And then unless GitHub's lying, it says you're 77 ahead and a lot behind. Or I guess that's master. Yeah. Sorry, that's master.
Yeah.
All right. Never mind.
All right. So all the batches will be clearly documented. Okay. This.
Sure. What's the release? Like, how are you trying to release this fork? Is it going to be the same mechanism? Will have access to the same RPMs, binaries, and everything that exists, or?
Yes. The fork is public. The images is public. So the binaries that the Hypercube image itself is going to be public. All of this is going to be public. All right. The piece is missing right now, and we have people. I think we have a dude called Chauncey. He's responsible for building like the CI/CD for this environment. And once we have this tightened up, we'll be using this fork.
Okay, again, and you'll provide the same binaries, the same output that the community provides right now. Made it Hypercube, made it just bare binaries or RPMs. Or,
yes.
I don't know. Okay.
Also, one of the things that we'll have here is a very wide set of CI/CD jobs for testing, right? On Azure, or any specific Azure test will be there, in addition to be upstream as well. The whole point of doing this is not to distance ourselves from mainline. Actually, we want to be close to mainline as much as we can. It has It has always been a part of what we're trying to do. However, due to just emergency out of band batches, basically, this is where this fork will get it first. But I internally, when we talked about this, I was very clear: if it doesn't make it upstream in X, and X is currently being defined, X weeks, it will be reverted. It will have to be reverted. We cannot afford to run away from mainline. That's something that you need to understand. So far, so good. Questions, comments? Nope. So the best guy to talk about, and probably a lot better explanation than me, is Jace. Sadly, we don't have him today, but he should be here like the next iteration, and he can talk more about the reasoning and how it will work and so forth. Right now, nobody's using that fork as far as I can tell. Like when you run ACS engine and all of that, you're actually running the hypercube images from Milan. Not yet. All right. Cole, I see you're trying to talk, but all right. So there was chatter yesterday about Disk and how it relates to Azure, Kubernetes, and all.
Hey, Cole, can you hear me now? Okay, I'm gonna ask a quick question. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with this headset, and the mic just keeps stopping. Anyway, is explicit MSI completely unblocked? Like, I don't see any public docs on that. Is that something that's about to happen, or okay, like a matter of days?
I would say weeks. Yes.
Okay.
Wayne is deeply engaged in this discussion, and he can.
Okay, all right. I was going to say, if you're looking for somebody to pick something up, I'll volunteer to pick that up if no one's looking at it. But if Wayne Ung's on it, that's cool.
No. So what I want, because you've implemented the old one, right? So I'll put you in contact with our guy who's currently involved in this, right? I think he's on the call.
Yeah,
his name is Jintao.
All right, yeah, I know Jintao too.
Yeah. So I'll put you in contact, and by all means, right?
Cool.
The basic idea is we want this, and we want it crisp, clean, and done.
Cool.
All right. More brains on it is better result for us. So the last thing, because there was chatter yesterday on the Azure SIG channel on Kubernetes Slack about Disk. Disk is right now is a standalone project that's not formally part of Azure, right? However, we're working actively on making this a reality. We want people to be able to use large number of disks, quickly attach them, detach them, and actually there is a flex volume. If you're keeping an eye on what I'm ranting about, there is a flex volume driver basic right now, and we're working on better release mechanism and all of that stuff. So expect news on that, but it will not change the need to support VMSS using existing data disks. That becomes first. All right. Okay, Jace, do you want to say anything?
No. Sorry, I couldn't be here for the meeting. I'm dealing with personal stuff, but. Yeah, if you haven't covered it, I just want to make sure that people look through the issues and PRs that are sort of out there with some, we need a little attention. But other than that, it looks like you guys did a great job planning, and I sincerely appreciate it, Cal.
All right. So the basic question I have right now, anybody sees that we missed something on 110, or there's a 110 features that we shouldn't be there?
So, Cal, regarding the explicit MSI and AKS specifically, there may be some additional work. Yeah. So
the first idea is to get it upstream. Second is to get it in ACS engine, and then eventually on the AKS. So, but by 110 release, I mean upstream and ACS engine. That's the primary focus. The rest will come after that.
How much Windows work is being done at at Microsoft? Like I've seen a lot of stuff going on with CNI, and there was the Windows beta Kubernetes post. I was just curious how much of that is like Apprenda folks doing that, how much of that is the Windows networking team.
Okay, so there is a small V team between folks like Gentian, you have Jesse Frazal, and you have Brandon working on getting Windows Kubernetes support, like better Windows Kubernetes support and so forth. This V team extends networking, storage, and kernel, Windows kernel as well.
Okay.
The idea has always been we want Windows to be like a first-class citizen to Kubernetes.
Yeah,
sure. The most important thing for me now is actually to talk about the CNI, because CNI eventually will become the default. I think it's currently now on ACS Engine, all right? So eventually CNI will be turned on all the clusters you will see on Azure. That's huge because there is a lot of limitation in the existing route table approach for networking and all of that, and we want to drop that. So this is not tracked here because it's happening mainly. It's really outside Kubernetes. It's a plugin for networking. But Jack Francis, I've seen him here. He can talk more about that. But that's in terms of like teams working for Microsoft on this. This is where I would like say first. Networking team is working heavily on enabling this. Then there's the Windows V team working across multiple groups. You have guys like Patrick Lang and he's a Windows kernel developer working heavily on this.
Okay. All right. That satisfies my curiosity. Thanks.
All right. Jason, do you want to close?
I just had a quick question on both P0s, Autoscaler and VMSS. How tightly coupled are they? If I looked at, let's say, if I focus on Autoscaler, am I dependent on VMSS to be fully working, or is that the plan though, to make Autoscaler work when VMSS is actually supported?
No. My understanding is the Autoscaler will work across the two types of VMs.
You mean the ones that are part of an AS and those that are part of a VMSS?
Yes.
Okay. And this is you're saying this is part of the cluster Autoscaler project?
Yes.
Okay. And not tied to ACS or AKS at all? Really,
no.
work with upstream?
Yes. Okay. So it will work even if you installed Kubernetes on naked VMs and you just turned on cloud provider yourself.
Okay.
All right. And by the way, this applies on everything we do. Just as a standard approach is everything works without the managed services, and then you can use them as a managed services if you want.
Thank you.
All right.
I think that's it.
With this note, yeah.
Thank you, Cal, for running the meeting. And if anybody has any questions, just hit them in the SIG Azure Slack channel in Kubernetes, and we'll go from there. But looks like we've got a good thing. I'll be working on the PM side of this, so interfacing with the features process to make sure this is documented and that we track these through and do the documentation. So again, thanks everybody for all your help.
Yeah.
Have a good
Thank
rest of the day.
you. Take care. Bye.
Cheers.